Evening, everyone. Thanks for coming. I call this special budget meeting to order. Ms. Wick, would you call the roll?
Council President Suzanne Souter,
Here.
Councilperson Joseph Day,
Here.
Councilperson Nerman Zubaka,
Here.
Councilperson Andrew Zelt,
Here.
Councilperson Brian Mataway.
Here.
Also present, City Administrator Antonina Tantillo, City Treasurer James Wisman, and City Clerk and Finance Officer Courtney Taylor.
Well, we're here for round 5, I think, of the budget proposals. And Ms. Tantillo, you sent us the package electronically, and we have it in front of us, and it's on the screen for the public as
It's on our website as well for everyone too. So, thank you. We are back with just a few changes, based on our last meeting. Which I'll just go quickly through the budget. I'm not gonna go through all the iterations, but we're at budget number 5. With a proposed, revenue and expense of $7,598,646. With a proposed, tax rate. All right, so the changes that I made to the budget, there's just 3. I increased the insurance line, back to the original insurer to add 22,000 back to that line. And that's, page. Thank you. Sorry, take this one. So the public officials liability, police and property and liability. There are slight increases to add up to 22,000. Then we have the building and capital reserves lines. Which on page 7. That added 75,000 for the admin building. And then in revenue. About page 34. We added 10,000 to CCAPT for Verizon.
I'm sorry, building maintenance for the town hall was. Which is showing.
I'm guessing capital reserves
Great.
added 75 for it.
And then I'm sorry, the income was on page 35.
And that was adding 10,000 to the CCAPT
Right, yeah.
Verizon to make it from 10 to be more in line with the current budget. So, we've done all that, those were the final updates that we discussed. Had charts, comparison charts on page 11 and 12, and then 14 or 15 for revenue, to compare the previous year. And that leaves us with the new recommended rate of 0.3563549 to bring in tax revenue of $4,645,765, which is about a 12% difference from the rollback number. An additional revenue of $1,545,765. That's the final recommendation based on the additions from the last meeting. I do have on slide 20, I do have that 75-25 option that we've been looking at as a potential potential option to use a quarter of the additional revenue needed from reserves, and then the rest in the chicken tax revenue.
What page is that, sorry?
20.
In our presentation.
In our presentation. Yep.
Okay, got it.
And then if you go to the next slide. Yeah. you go to the slide after that, I just have a summary of the final, recommendations. So the total budget is 10,781,871 with the general fund budget of 7,598,646 and a grant budget of 3,183,225. Proposed new tax rate of 0.35635,499 to bring in the revenue of 4,645,765, and then presented the rollback rate. I also just wanted to point out a couple of other outcomes that this 2026 budget year has brought us. The senior tax exemption expansion, which was approved at the last meeting, which expands the opportunities for, thank you, Kathy, for eligibility based on age and income. And then at tomorrow's meeting, we will have a public hearing for property tax exemption for those with disabilities, expanding that. And we also have a resolution to establish a comprehensive plan fund and a special projects and grants fund, which reflects in our budget with added budget lines, and then the establishment of new funds. Those will be considered tomorrow as well, via resolution. And then we also, with our ordinance to approve the budget and approve the new tax rate, included in that is opportunity for an adjustment to the tax penalties to delay them till later in the budget year, to allow for, residents to have some more time to adjust to this possible tax increase. So just to summarize, that we've been looking at not only the needs of the budget, but the needs of the residents to give them some breaks if that opportunity arises. So that was all I had to present. I didn't know if we wanted to have a discussion.
Is there three quick one, I think?
Sure.
I'm guessing it's gonna be yes. Do we have the business fees? We talked about looking at business fees. Do we have that in the budget already, the contract?
The project to look at all the pieces,
Mhm.
yes.
Okay,
Mhm.
did we add 10,000 already in for a comprehensive plan?
Yes.
Okay.
Tax work
It's already-
added 10,000, so it's 14 on that line.
14,
Mhm.
and then I think at some point we talked about grant matching, like, I don't know, is it?
Yeah, so that's the special projects and grants line, and
Can
then
you tell me where
tomorrow,
those things
you'll
are?
see that resolution.
Comprehensive planning.
Is that on the planning commission or is that?
That's
on
like
the-
the planning commission.
At the end?
They comprehensive plan update. You see.
All right, so that's
14,
page 19 in our, okay, 14. And then where's the, I guess, special projects? Would that be other admin
Yeah,
or
under
council?
administration, funding 16. Special projects.
All right, perfect, thank you.
Mhm.
I just want to make sure that, we've had that in already.
We have added that, and the resolution, that
And
you'll
business
see
fee.
tomorrow. The study is in that special project.
Okay,
Can you explain the situation of how we handle the rollback rate and then how we're then going to do the additional?
Sure,
I
so.
remember
we-
you telling me there's like a time frame that we need to do something.
Yeah, so we're in that time frame right now, so we had to. We had to look at our old assessed, total assessed values. And the tax rate at that point was 1.2. Then we had to look at our total new assessed values, see how we could generate that same amount of revenue, which brought us to that rollback number
Mm-hmm.
of the 0.23779, which left us with a deficit of 1.5 in a need for tax revenue or a need to fulfill the budget somehow. So we increased the tax rate based on the needs of the budget.
So I also had to believe that we needed to pass the rollback and then so many days later, we can do the next.
So we had to introduce the ordinance, which we did back on the 11th,
Okay,
which has the rollback rate, it has the new rate.
so it's all in that one,
It's all in
so
the
it's
one.
already been identified.
It's already been identified, posted. The notice for public hearing's been out for some time now. We have a public hearing scheduled for tomorrow at 6:30. And then we have a budget meeting at 7 or immediately following the end of that.
Thank you for the clarification.
And that budget, ordinance, that ordinance will also approve the budget and offer this, delay of the tax. Penalty, thank you.
And the grant budget on your slide, is that the bond bills and everything? That assumes
all
we
our
get what
grants.
we've asked.
No,
No, it's all the grants that we currently receive,
Okay,
received by June 30th.
okay.
So once we get more grants, we'll have to add that
But that's like, if we don't get the grants, we don't do those things that we ask for the grants to cover, right?
in, correct? Or we'll have to seek additional funding measures.
Right, or otherwise it won't happen.
Right.
So it's not like we're going out on a limb or anything.
Right, no, the grant budget is grants that have already been received,
Okay.
that have been obligated to us.
And bond bill is still not, that's the last thing they're doing on the
Yeah.
30th?
Yeah, we should hopefully know Monday, Tuesday.
But that will be under audited FY 26 numbers, right? So like we might adopt 3.1, but whatever comes out is gonna show for this year, correct? 'Cause
say that
it's-
again, I'm sorry.
Like the 3.1 is what we're adopting right now, but the
That's what
audited
we're at.
amount would be, I don't know, let's say 4 million. With all the other stuff that comes.
Yeah, the
In between.
3.1 is what we currently
Mhm.
receive,
We'll
or
have
we
it
are
July
what we
1st.
have already been awarded.
Mhm.
Nothing to come.
I understand, I understand.
So-
You'll see,
But the bond bills for this coming up here, so I'm just saying like it would be added.
Yeah.
if
yeah,
we
you'll
get
see
whatever-
on your monthly
Mhm.
reports.
Yeah, the time given, I guess.
It is.
Got a couple, just comments about this whole cycle.
Mhm.
As we get to the finish line. I'd like to sincerely thank the city staff, my colleagues in council and residents for their input, time and consideration getting us near the finish line. It is well documented my desires to have new and dynamic revenue sources for the betterment of the city, its employees and beloved organizations. And that remains true today and will remain true tomorrow. These efforts will be renewed and reimagined as we go into this next fiscal year and beyond. In November and December, the desire to expand the senior tax credit program was dreamt. Last week, City Council stood in agreement with this affirmation, to which I'm so grateful to my colleagues. I'm most convinced that another initiative mentioned in Q4 is most necessary, having witnessed the yeoman's work and the critical services provided by our illustrious local 501c3 organizations, and also because I've seen their balance sheets, which have indicated that they too have had to dig into their savings to balance lean and reduce budgets. These organizations are our lifeblood of our community, and what they do is hard. I'll be pushing forward with initiatives to help to provide them with pledge agreements, i.e. guarantee of commitment of funds from the city for multiple years to allow them time to adequately plan and forecast in these most difficult times. Without these organizations, we would assuredly lose our charm and character. Thank
I just have one item that I wanted to talk about, and I think I know the answers, but I wanted to make it clear. So you've included the 3/4 coverage by tax increase and 1/4 coverage by city savings.
Mhm.
And as we all know, in years past, we've been really kind of stealing from our savings to cover our deficit. But just to be clear, if we did this year, you don't project that we're gonna save $386,000 in the budget next year, so we wouldn't have to raise taxes, right? There's nothing in this budget that would not be applicable for next year, so it would be raising taxes again. Is that what you thought? I mean.
I would imagine, I think it would be more than 386,000 based on contractual obligations and needs. And, you know, we've already cut a lot of this budget that was originally proposed, so I definitely foresee that going up more than 386.
Thank you.
But I guess, you were asking for the FY 26 expenses, would they all be spent? Like, or do we see 386 worth of expenses potentially being carried over to next year? Is that, because that's why I was asking last several meetings, I guess. Like, looking at historically budgets, doesn't seem like we spend all of the money every year.
Yeah.
So is that the question you're asking? Because I know there's an increase next year coming, I understand that. But are you asking about expenses, like, not everything realistically being spent?
So my point more was that that
So we're not
even if
raising
we
tax
did
more.
not do this, even if we took the three-quarter option, quarter option this year, it's not gonna stop us from having to dig in either more to the savings next year or raising taxes
Mhm.
again.
I agree with that. I think it's issue of like this year impact, like
Yeah.
if we don't spend 386, let's say, right? Then we're taxing people for that 386 this year. That's the consideration there, like
Yeah.
versus it being split across 2 years more.
And I think we've all talked about it even in the last budget cycle where we added things and now we're cutting them out.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I think the things that we added, like the additional personnel are and were still needed. And although we're not getting everything, I do think at some point, it is something we gotta add back into the budget.
Yeah,
I hope so.
But I just wanted to make it clear that it's not unusual expenses this year and our budget next year is going to be less.
I don't foresee that. I wish I could say that, but
Yeah, and I figured that was the answer. I just wanted to, bring it out.
the contractual obligations and the demands, things that we need to accomplish, I don't really foresee that.
It seems like we've sort of folded item 2 into item 1 because
Yeah.
we've been talking about the tax rates as well as the budget itself. So are there any further comments or questions about those two?
I just want to echo this conversation really shortly that I'm okay raising tax for 100% of it. I'm just feeling my view on it is like if we haven't spent the full amount of budget every year, but this is like one of those years where like so many factors are coming in together that like we should opt this year to put some of it from unreserved. I understand I can be a minority. I'm okay with that, but I just want to echo that one more time. So because I'm okay raising 2 years in a row for the reasons that I stated, like I think, we could, reduce some of the impact for residents, but totally okay with it all because I agree there's still cuts that we have made significantly in the budget, but that's just the biggest thought I'm having in my head for this next.
Well, when it comes to next year, we'll know, of course, whether we've spent all of what we've budgeted for this year, and if past trends continue, we probably won't. So we'll have a decision to make about whatever's left over. If we roll that over into the next year's budget, that's that much less we have to raise taxes next year.
No, I understand. I would hope that's the case. Yeah. I'm just saying for this year, impact
We've
is higher.
considered
because of
putting any excess budgeted amounts into these special funds. And that's something we've decided to defer until after we conclude the budget to
Mhm.
decide how we're gonna handle all that. But that's one of the issues with committing to doing that, is we don't have the option then to roll over the excess or the leftover, if you will,
Mhm.
into the next year's budget.
I understand, yeah.
So,
And just remember, the delayed some hirings, so we're only gonna see a portion of that salary in this budget, or those salaries rather, and the full salary next year, once we hire, so, it will cover.
plus we have the ASME contract coming
Correct.
for our non-police employees
Correct.
for next year. So that's gonna impact the fiscal 27 budget.
Yes.
But I mean, I will state this, I understand there's moving pieces, but I looked at 10 years worth of trend. And in all 10 years, we have spent less than what we budgeted. So that just wanna highlight that, like, I agree with everybody's points, but I just wanna highlight that every single year in 10 years worth of time, this is an outlier if we spend it all, I guess is my point, rather than, like the other way around.
That's a function of the way we budget. We
I
budget
understand.
conservatively by overestimating expenses or estimating high, I'll say, for expenses and estimating low for revenues.
Mhm.
And that in the past 10 years has worked out that we have money, budgeted funds left over.
And I would agree, in the past 10 years, we've been ultra conservative. And now, though, I think we are getting close to reality with the budgets.
Right.
And I think it's, key for us to keep all that in mind so we don't, over budget.
Right. Well, that's why we went
Yeah,
back and
that's-
forth
that
with
just-
various amounts for different budget lines. So Anything else in these two items? Otherwise, then tomorrow night, we will hopefully finalize the budget.
Yeah, so the ordinance has been updated to reflect the numbers that we presented tonight. It's on the website and we will have the public hearing at 6:30 and then the regular meeting at 7 to hopefully make a vote on this.
Okay,
Under we see fit.
I think one more neat conversation, or if you can brief the public on what happened today in Dover, just
Yeah.
for the context of it not impacting this fiscal year, but rather.
you want to go ahead and do that before we move on?
Sure, thank you. Yes, so today, the Senate, heard, the, House substitute to HB 144, which was for the variable tax rates, as an option to have unequal tax rates, in the future. So it thankfully passed by the Senate, it previously passed by the House. So now we wait for the governor to sign it, and then we can begin conversations of how we would like to apply that in the future.
And it's way too late to do that for this fiscal
Yeah,
year.
we
so-
started looking at some options at the last meeting and previous meetings and just discussed a couple things, but there's a lot to look at and consider.
Right, what categories we're gonna use,
Correct.
what's. And obviously, the exact rates won't come into play until we're putting together next year's budget,
Right.
but we at least, I hope, sometime in the maybe late summer, early fall, can establish what categories we want to use, and then it's just a matter of setting the rates for those categories once we know how the budget's going to. Calling it unequal tax rates makes it sound odd, but it just.
It just removed the word equal.
Our current charter requires all tax rates to be the same for all types of property. And now we will have the option of taxing different types of property differently. And that's all that this does. Okay, item 3 on the agenda, we had already, since this agenda was published, we had voted to table this ordinance until after the budget is complete. So we will not be discussing that one tonight. Item 4 on the budget, ordinance 554 was passed at the last meeting. That's the senior property tax exemption. So obviously, we don't need to discuss that further tonight.
The only thing I'd like to note about that is we are going to put out a statement and information for the public of the changes, alerting them that they can come and make an appointment and see if they're eligible for that discount. But we wanted to wait to see what's going to be approved tomorrow possibly, and then do that in conjunction so there's less confusion.
Right.
So once we see what's going to be approved, we'll make those.
Sure, we want it to speak for everybody. So what comes up tomorrow is whether to extend these same changes to the permanently disabled. So,
And are you noting the deadline change as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
I'm guessing eligibility and all that stuff, you know.
Yeah, all of that will be in the notice. Yeah.
okay, so then the next item on the agenda is public comments. Usual rules, please sign in at the podium. Everyone has 3 minutes. Here's the timekeeper's light.
Okay, you go first. Okay.
No, you go ahead and speak.
Oh, okay. Oh, up here. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Thank you. I'm Dan, not President on 7th Street. So I just want to get my terminology right. The rollback tax rate is the rate that would achieve revenue neutrality to last year, right?
Correct.
So at 23 cents, 23.7 cents per hundred. And then the new rate is 35.6 cents.
Mhm.
You realize that's about a 50% increase in tax. So I just want to make sure that, I mean, I would expect there'd be a lot of pushback from the public about that. Somebody with $1,000 tax bill is not going to have a $1,500 tax bill. And I know we're making up for 10 years of, or more than that, of no tax increase, but I just wanted to, okay.
So, yeah, we're aware of that.
Understood.
It's unfortunate.
Yeah.
it should have been done incrementally over the years.
Sure.
For a variety of reasons,
Yeah.
with past councils and past administrations, it wasn't, so.
Yeah, and Newcastle County, for their part, they said they would remain revenue neutral. Colonial School District also said they would remain revenue neutral. The cities have the leeway, I guess, or the municipalities have the
Yeah,
leeway.
they're remaining revenue neutral for a year, right?
Yeah,
We don't know what'll happen.
yeah. Okay, that's all I had. I just want to make sure everybody understood 50% tax increase. It's quite significant. Thank you.
Thank you, and I just want to note, that is noted in the ordinance that'll be up for public comment tomorrow as well,
Okay,
the percentage, that it'll increase. And there's also a spreadsheet available online where you can search for your parcel number and look at the, impact to your bill.
Anyone else?
Hi, I'm Richard Stack, and a couple meetings ago, I made a suggestion for a complicated transition assessment credit that would help some of the residential property owners. I've thought about it more, and I would like to retract or rescind that suggestion. I think I have a better idea tonight. And regarding the previous gentleman's comments, all the other taxing authorities that tax properties within the city of Newcastle have kept pace with inflation over these past 16 years. They are all very much clustered around the CPI line. Only the city of Newcastle has been flat for 16 years. So that understanding may help residents cope with the sudden significant 50% increase. But my new and improved, only to be improved further by council or someone else later, idea would be for council to seriously consider adopting a residential owner occupant homestead exemption for the first $50,000 of assessment, with no age criteria, no income criteria, no home value criteria. So every owner occupant within the city would be entitled to $50,000 reduction in their home assessment. So let's do the numbers as they say on the radio. There's about 2,000 or less owner occupied houses or properties in the city. If you reduce every single one of those by 50,000, and they wouldn't all be able to be reduced by 50,000 because some of them are already going to get 173,000 for senior or disabled, but up to 50,000. If they got the full 50,000 times no more than 2,000, it would be $100 million reduction aggregate in the assessment. Using the 0.356 rate, that would be about $356,000 revenue loss. So I would suggest that the council consider adopting the single rate as presented by the city administrator, manager, and then, but simultaneously adopting a $50,000 homestead exemption. By comparison, Philadelphia, the city of Philadelphia has a $100,000, no questions asked, homestead exemption. You live in your house in the city of Philadelphia, you get the first 100,000 you don't pay city taxes on. I think the city of Newcastle could do something very much like that, which would favor the people who really have skin in the game, people who live in the city, which I do not. I don't even live in Delaware. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Stadd. We'll definitely look at that. And you're right, the city of Philadelphia has that. They also have soda taxes and they have city wage taxes too.
Anyone else? Mr. Kurz.
Well, I don't have skin in the game. I'm a renter. But I can tell you, it was important enough to be here on my birthday. I left a party because you guys, as council, grin, look, and disregard the public's requests. There is so much fat in this budget that would not affect payrolls, insurance, police, but you refuse to give up the dog park and 7 other things that I will provide in the next day that should have been cut. You say 50% by the formula that you came up with, Mr. Knox. If you did not split up, again, bait and switch, just like with taking the full price of the dog park and splitting it up between road improvement and the dog park, it would have been 105% increase. And Suzanne Souter, Joe Day, and Andrew Zell, you guys have been council members for a full term now. Miss Souter, you've been on the council for years, but did nothing to prevent this from happening. So I will be putting paperwork in it, and I will request Max's email address to hold this budget up and take this council and the city to the court with the Department of Justice within the next 60 days. And I'd like a roll call as far as that you're willing to pass this budget with all the fat in it when you could prevent next year's tax increase by taking that stuff out. So I'd like to know, Mr. Day, are you in favor of this budget with the dog park and at least 150, 200,000?
Phil, Mr. Gross, this is in a.
You've got to be held accountable. This
We will be voting on that in a roll call vote at the meeting tomorrow night. We'll leave it at that.
Well, I can tell you that you've had plenty of time to adjust it, and you've refused. When you guys get something in your mind, this is how it's gonna be done. And Mr. Day, Mr. Zelt said you were gonna go around polling people about different issues. I put in a FOIA request, which I have not gotten 12 FOIA requests back within the 15-day time. That is definitely not legal. So I'm requesting with regards to the dog park. I want to know who wants it, because I went around and I've hit 60 people between visitors and residents, and there's only 6 out of those 80 that want it.
Thank you, Mr. Gross. Your time's up.
As I've said at previous meetings, the dog park funding and the funding for the parking lot in the area where the dog park will be placed are not influential to the tax increase. This was a carryover of reserve funding that will
Yeah.
fund those issues. So the tax increase is not influenced by that.
It could be taken out though.
Your time's up, thank you.
Any other comments? Okay, then I think we're ready to adjourn. Is there a motion to adjourn to executive session?
So moved.
Second,
Sorry.
all in favor?
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned.
Max is.